not to think I don't think Morgan Whittaker's a good player. I do. I quite like him. I would love to see him in a Burnley shirt. I think he offers something that we don't have at the minute.
Hello and welcome to another scouting report, this time for the Burnley game. And joining me is Joe from Turfcast. Joe, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and where we can find you?
Yeah, so as you've said, my name's Joe. I'm from Turfcast Podcast, the Burnley YouTube channel and podcast. Just you can find us on X, as it's called. I refuse to call it X, but I feel like I have to call it X when I come on these shows. Facebook is probably our main one, but YouTube and the podcast as well. Just search Turfcast and you'll find us on there.
Cheers. As you'll notice, I am back doing the scouting reports. I've moved house and dealt with a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So I am not Aaron, for which you are very welcome. Because I've not yet set up my recording, you have my entry into the Argyle Life Curtains competition tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday, day before the game. Hopefully it will be up tonight. But no. That's not right, is it? Yeah, it is. It is. Great start. That. So Burnley, as you said on the reciprocal recording for Turfcast, the elephant in the room, Morgan Whittaker. I suggested to you that Argyle were looking for 8 figures, or at least attainable bonuses rise into that. What do you think, given that Burnley have come back in with a second bid? Are our chances of Burnley being the ones to meet that asking price, or do you think we'll be forced to compromise somewhere beneath that?
I think there'll be some sort of compromise, whether it be loan with obligation, or and then maybe 10 or something if we go up, or I don't know. We tend to do things in a very structured sort of like way to Burnley. It's like when we brought in Maxime Esteve, it was a case like he was brought in January. We couldn't really afford him last January. And we couldn't really afford him, so it was a case of, right, we'll do a loan with an obligation to buy if he plays X amount of games, do it something like that. And I think we'll probably structure some sort of deal that way. However, I doubt we'd stretch to 10 figures, even with bonuses. And I think if we do, I think that's mainly because we've gone down the panic buy sort of route. That's not to think I don't think Morgan Whittaker's a good player. I do. I quite like him. I would love to see him in a Burnley shirt. I think he offers something that we don't have at the minute. Having said that, I think Scott Parker does like to sort of like nullify any creative players. So whether he'd do that well in this side, I'm not so sure. But he is a player I'd like to see in a Burnley shirt. But I'm just not sure 10 million plus is the right sort of money to be paying for him. It's just who have Sheffield United just signed that Cannon. I think he's gone for a similar fee. And I felt the same way about him. I think that's too much for him. I think they're both decent Championship players. Would any of them do it in the Premier League? I'm not so sure. I think with Burnley and Sheffield United looking to get into the Premier League, buying these sort of players and then struggling with them next season, it just kind of seems pointless. It just feels like you're back to square one in 18 months. So yeah, I would like to see him in a Burnley shirt, but I don't particularly think we should be spending 10 million on him. But if we do, I'll be happy that he's here.
Yeah, it's funny because Argyle fans, I think we are split. We could do with the money, to be honest. The squad needs such a rebuild. As much as we'd be loath to see him go, absolutely hate to see him go. It's money that, and even sort of like if you're talking about 7-8 with some add-ons, is something that maybe the club is going to need in the near future. But you talked there about sort of the style of play and the manager's magic touch, reverse Midas touch that he seems to have. And you mentioned it again in the reciprocal podcast. But, from the outside looking in, you appear to be really boring to watch whenever I've sort of managed to catch you with a lot of good quality. Don't get me wrong. But I think as our game against you proved, you're very competent at soaking up pressure and letting the quality tell now and again. Although when it doesn't, when you can't find that breakthrough, I think you've probably drawn more games than you'd have liked this season.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a fair assessment. But how are the fans feeling about the style and the performances? Given you're in a pretty good position to compete for the top 2 places, you're certainly not going to drop out of the playoff places unless there's an absolute disaster. Your position's pretty darn reasonable, but that doesn't always reflect sort of how the fans feel. What's your assessment of the style, the performances thus far?
I think there's a bit of a split amongst the fan base. Some people are like fed up with Parker ball, but can sort of like, as they call it, Parker ball, but can see it, as the fact that we're second, third in the league, whatever it is now, third now after the draw at the weekend just gone. But for me, the priority is getting out of this league. I think I said the same to Aaron 6 months ago, whenever it was we played you. It's like we've conceded 9 goals all season. 9 goals in 27 games. That is fantastic. And I think that there needs to be more focus on how good that is than just we're not scoring enough, which we are not scoring enough. I fully admit that. We've cracked it. Like, we know how to keep the ball out of our net. That's brilliant. We have 100% cracked that. I think at 27 games in a season, I think this is the best ever championship defensive record since the rebrand in the early 2000s. So we're obviously doing something very well. We're clearly a good side. But I think a lot of that isn't just down to the personnel. Like, it is. We have Maxime Esteve, like I've already mentioned once. I think, in my opinion, he's the best defender in the championship. I think James Trafford is in the top 2 goalkeepers in the championship. I think CJ Egan-Riley is probably in a shout within the sort of like top 10 central defenders in the championship. Then we've got a fullback on the right-hand side like Connor Roberts. They're very good personnel, but I think a lot of it is to do with the cautious style of play as well. I think Scott Parker is set up to not concede first rather than score goals, which is the exact opposite of what Vincent Kompany did. Vincent Kompany came to the Burnley and just took the championship by storm. And don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic season. But this defence is better than that defence. But then which team would I rather watch? The Vincent Kompany team. But yeah, for me, it's just about getting out of this division. And if we stink the place out and win 1-0 at Wembley or something like that, or just win 1-0 every single game between now and the end of the season and win the division in May, I won't care. And it'll be interesting as well if we do get to the Premier League. How are we going to play in the Premier League? Probably a similar style because it's Parker's style. But again, it would be the exact opposite of how we played in the Premier League last time out under Kompany. We were getting battered 5-6-0 at home. It were awful. It was so bad. Like, people can sit there and say, like, oh, it's boring to watch. And, some games I've left the turf thinking, yeah, that were pretty dire. That there's nothing more boring than turning up to the turf and watching Man City stick 5 or 6 past you, and then week after seeing Arsenal do it, then the week after seeing Newcastle score 4 against you. It's just boring. That's more boring than winning 1-0. So, yeah, I'm not overly bothered about it. We've won 14 games. Sunderland are apparently this amazing attacking, brilliant team that are so entertaining to watch. They've won the same amount as us. All right, they've scored eight more goals in the process, but yeah, I understand it for a neutral point of view. It can be a bit tedious, but if we win games, I'm not overly bothered. But that's the problem. There has been 11 draws this season, and a lot of them have been 0-0s.
Yeah, I think that's a good summation. I'd snap your hand off for some boring 1-0 wins right now. No doubt at all. You mentioned James Trafford there being in the top 2 keepers in the championship. Just how much better do you think Michael Cooper is than James Trafford? Is it just a little bit, or is it like by a lot?
Teeny tiny bit, and I think Trafford's catching him up, if I'm honest with you. You know what? If it weren't for Trafford's season last season, I think this is why Cooper's so highly thought of. Is Cooper had a good season last season and probably had a good season the season before that at Plymouth as well. I wouldn't know that far back. And he's having another good season this season. Trafford played very well for Bolton in League One. Then he came to Burnley and then was thrown in the deep end in the Premier League. And shock horror, he didn't swim, he sank. He wasn't good enough last season in the Premier League. I think if you'd have put Cooper in that Burnley team last season, I'm not sure he does any better. I think that's why a lot of people are a bit harsh on Trafford, and I was a bit harsh on Trafford last year, if I'm honest with you. But I think this season has shown that this is probably his current level at the minute, and he is one of, like I said, if not the best keeper in the Championship. I do agree it probably is slightly Cooper. But I just feel like if it wasn't for last season and him being awful last season in the Premier League, in an awful team, where it wasn't his fault. It was hung out to dry by the manager. It was obvious that Trafford wasn't good enough for the Premier League. It was obvious. But what did Vincent Kompany keep doing? He kept sticking him there, sticking him there, sticking him there. And in the end, he just looked like a rabbit caught in headlights. He was a young kid playing against these, brilliant Premier League attacks, and the defence was awful. He was awful. But we didn't do that much better when we brought Muric in. He started making some horrible mistakes, as you've seen him do for Ipswich this season. So, yeah, I do like Trafford, and I think last season probably was a little bit harsh on him, but I kind of also stand by it as well, because I think I've been proven right this season in the fact that I always said he isn't good enough for this level yet. He probably could have done with a championship loan from us last season. And then maybe if we are back in the championship, obviously, which we are, then it'd be our number one goalkeeper. But I feel like, yeah, if it wasn't for last season, I think a lot of people will have higher opinions on Trafford. But I think he's proven a lot this season that he is a very, very, very good goalkeeper. And he probably will be England's number one for the next 10 years once Pickford retires. Just look at them 2 saves he made at the weekend as well, and some excellent tactics as well to put Isidore off as well. There was nothing wrong with that, by the way. The Sunderland tears were quite delicious at full time. But yeah, he's a fantastic goalkeeper, and he's getting better and better every week.
I'm a bit disappointed you didn't give me something a bit more clickbait worthy from my my obvious fishing trip there. But I must admit, the last couple months, especially, Trafford's form has been excellent. I know he's obviously had a good defence and good performances all season, but he really seems to be, maybe like you said, the confidence finally, a good run for
exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. I think it completely drained out of him last season, and you can see why. I think the manager completely hung him out to dry, and now he's playing under a manager that knows how to use players and is a better man manager than what Vincent Kompany was. And yeah, the confidence is growing every single week.
So only 9 goals conceded the entire season, as you mentioned. What's our best hope of snatching anything at home? Although we're at home, we're probably in worse state than we were when we came to yours. It's going to be. I'd suggest we need to try and keep you out. Hope that you're not up for a barnstormer, and hope something goes our way. But is there some hidden weakness that you can divulge that maybe we haven't noticed?
Genuinely not. No, and it's not even a case of like I don't want to tell you. Like there is genuinely not. Like when I try and look at some of the goals that we've conceded, some of the ones that stand out. One at home to Middlesbrough, where the only one where I've looked at us and thought that's a poor goal to concede that I can remember off the top of my head, I'm sure there's some others out there, is the goal at home to Middlesbrough. It was a good pass by the lad, but it was John Egan was playing somebody on. Bashir Humphreys was caught ball watching, and somebody else made a mistake as well. There were like 3 errors within that goal, where if just one of them did their job properly, it probably wouldn't have gone in. But other than that, I'm trying to think now off the top of my head of goals I've conceded. And the only one that stands out, unfortunately, and I apologise for swearing on your podcast, is the one that Blackburn Rovers scored at the Turf, where they just hit and hope, and it just went in and looped over Trafford. It was the flukiest goal in the world. But there's no like hidden weakness. There's like it's not a case of set pieces. We've not been great at them because we have. So yeah, I mean, maybe shoot on sight and hope that one of them you just catch one. I know Whittaker can do that. I think the goal he scored against Brentford was quite a long range effort, and he's been known to do that a few times. But yeah, there's no real weakness in the defence, and that is why we've conceded 9 goals all season. Because a championship manager would be able to look at data and videos and stuff like that and be able to pinpoint a weakness in that Burnley defence. But the fact we've only conceded 9, I think, proves that there is no weakness. And that, by the way, is 10 goals less than Leeds. Leeds are on 19. Sheffield United are on 17. No one's even close to us. And I think that just proves that there's no weakness in that defence.
Well, that's encouraging. If Whittaker's playing, that's the massive caveat. Is he going to be on the pitch in the squad? That could be telling. If Whittaker's playing, then even the idea that he can cut in, I think you're well aware of his skills. Otherwise, you wouldn't be bidding for him. So I think the chances of him getting space to cut in on the left. However, Ibis Sissoko's back and he's got magic feet. So if he's fit enough to play, 45, I'd take just to give us some kind of hope. Then maybe we've got some hit and hope options on the field. Otherwise, like you say, I think it could be a long evening for our attackers, if not for our defenders. Though with this new style we're playing, it could be a long night for everybody in green or white if we're wearing our proper away kit. So predictions, Joe. Could you give me a prediction for the game on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I mean, You'll do well to score. Like, as we've just spoken about the defence, everybody will do well to score against Burnley. Like I said, there's only been 9 goals. I can only even remember 2 of them. It's been so long since a team actually scored against us. Sunderland had 2 penalties and still didn't manage it. So you will do well to score. The positives for you is that we don't score many goals. I know you have issues at the back in terms of injuries, and you have the worst goal difference in the league, I would imagine, at the minute. Obviously, I think it's -30 I saw just before I came live. Yeah, so -30. You've conceded 55 goals. Yeah, that is quite a lot. I will be honest with you. But I was going to say we don't score goals.
9. It's not 9.
It's not 9. It's definitely not 9. That's poor. I still think 1-0. You know, even, look at the game at the Turf. I know you're a completely different side now, playing in under a different manager with a different style, but we struggled to break you down. We really did. We struggled to break you down, and I think it were a penalty in the end, wasn't it? Off the top of my head, and if it wasn't for that penalty, we'd have still been playing now and it'd been 0-0. But there's been so many games like that at the Turf where teams just sit back and we can't break them down. So if you want to play in that style, if you want to sit back, if you're happy to do that at home, Oxford did it to us at home and that's how they got a point. But obviously, this is why we are top of the away league table, or were the last time I checked. We are still top of the away league table with 8 wins away from home. Leeds have only got 5, for example. Is because teams don't sit back at home. They come out and they try and impose their style on us, and then we can then pick it around them and have the individual quality. I think we win. I don't think it's as comfortable as some Plymouth fans will make out. I think we'll probably struggle to break it down and maybe score in the second half. I think if we score early on, I know I won't mention your prediction that you've done on the other show yet. I'm not sure if you want to mention it on here before some of your viewers will hear it. But if for that to happen, we'd have to score early, and then you'd have to come out at us, and then we'll just pick you off. But I don't think we score early. I think we struggle, and then eventually maybe break you down around the 60th minute and then win 1-0. I do think we get the win, but I don't think it's going to be as comfortable as some of your fans are thinking, mate. I'm going to go 1-0 to Burnley.
Fair enough. For those who are interested, I've predicted in our in the Argyle Life Prediction Challenge that we'd lose 3-0 to Burnley, but then I predicted us to beat QPR. So you never know; it could all be coming back. I could have put the reverse jinx on us. Who knows? Going up looks positive. Got within touching distance of the top 2 places. Not going to fall out of the playoff places unless something goes incredibly wrong. I can't see that happening at all. So there's obviously a chance. That you confident? Automatics?
I mean, I change my mind every week, if I'm honest with you. I was on a Sportsman podcast just before Christmas, and I was waxing lyrical about Sheffield United, and they were all going, "Oh, Leeds will win the league. Leeds will win the league." And I was like, "I think Sheffield United will win it." And then it just depends who finishes second. Hopefully, it's us. We then went to Sheffield United on Boxing Day and beat them, and I was astounded at how bad they were. And then I watched them on TV not long after that against West Brom, again at Bramall Lane, and I was astounded by how bad they were again. Since then, they've lost a game, and I was like, right, that's it. Sheffield United are out of it. And then they've won 2, while we've only won the 1. So I think at the minute Leeds win it. I think Leeds seem to be changing their their away form into points and some wins rather than just continuous defeats. If they can keep their home form going, I think they win it. And then January's massive. If we get Whittaker for not a ridiculous price and hopefully add somebody else, because Sheffield United have just added Cannon, who I think is a decent player in this. Oh, it's not official yet, but fingers crossed that hits a snag. If that gets all right, I think he adds goals in the Championship side, but I don't think he offers too much for them if they go up. Look, at the minute, I'm going to say we finish second, but ask me again on the 5th of February, for example, and I'm probably saying Burnley 4th because I was very impressed with Sunderland. I was at the Stadium of Light earlier in the season. I was impressed with them. I thought they were a good pressing side, but they didn't have that much quality on the ball. All right, they beat us at one of the 2 defeats we've had this season. But at the Turf, I was very impressed with their midfield. Watching Joe Bellingham in person, again, as he's grown over the course of the season even more, I was amazed by how good he was. So don't count Sunderland out yet. I was impressed with them at the weekend. But at the minute, I'm thinking Leeds, Burnley, then maybe Sunderland, then Sheffield United. But I'm not a massive fan of Ben Brereton Diaz, but he seems to do well there. But it's any one of them 4. Honestly, it genuinely is. I thought Sunderland had faded away, but now I've completely changed my mind on that. So yeah, at the minute, Leeds top, Burnley second. But yeah, even if you text me again in an hour and said what's your prediction, I've probably changed it.
I would ask you what your thoughts are on Argyle survival chances, but I don't really need to depress myself anymore, and the viewers don't really want to hear it either. So we'll leave it there, I think. Hopefully we're closer to your prediction than mine, and all the best for the rest of the season and the promotion chase after Wednesday, of course. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
No, thank you, mate.